In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we're going to be talking about a big Bears victory on week one of the NFL season. We'll be talking about baseball and a little more, but first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You could see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Sure, the season's not going on right now, but that shouldn't stop you from heading on over to icehogs.com. Get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, sign up for season tickets and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, wow, what a roller coaster today.
Yeah, to quote Mad Max Fury Road, I live, I die, I live again. Because that's kind of how it felt like being a Bears fan today. There was so much anticipation and so much energy going into the kickoff. And then blink of an eye, everyone's retching, feeling sick, and throwing things at the TV. And then we pull it out. And I do want to add the fact that no matter what we think of the game and the results, that is a game where we won in a fashion that we so often lost last year. Somebody showed the graphic of when the Titans had the lead with like 13 minutes to go, up 17-3. Then they show the final score of the Bears winning 24-17. I'm like, we saw that graphic way too many times over the past few years, but the other way around. It was always the Bears blowing the big lead. So it was a roller coaster of emotions. There are some concerns and some pressing things to talk about, but we do start the season 1-0, so I think there's a bit of relief there.
Yeah, so we talked about this last week is the one thing about NFL week one, it's weird. It's real weird. All kinds of weird stuff happen.
Yep.
And we saw that today in a lot of different games between, the best wide receiver arguably in the NFL getting put in handcuffs outside the stadium before the game, all the way to the Bengals getting their asses kicked by a veteran journeyman quarterback on a really bad NFL team. It's just a weird week. Everybody's coming out, with the way the NFL offseason goes and training camp, the rules about limiting padded practices. The first week is always rough, and even the first couple weeks, it's not until week 3, 4, 5 settles in that you start to see who the good teams are. I mean, the Chiefs looked terrible last year at the beginning of the season, and they went on to win the Super Bowl.
Right. Right.
So it's just a weird week, but we saw a lot of good things and we saw a lot of bad things.
Yeah, we did. One thing I want to make clear too about when you evaluate week one is there's a lot of pressure on this Bears team, right? There were a lot of high expectations. And listen, you always got to respect every opponent in the NFL, no matter how good or bad they are. And, I don't think this really gets to the players as much, but the fact that our expectations were so high and the energy was so high at Soldier Field, and I mean, let's be real. Everyone this game was talking about the Bears. With Caleb Williams and the defense they built, the Titans were just the team the Bears were playing. And they came out and just played better football than you in the first half. Now, with that said, the Titans also gave you a window of opportunity where the deficit could have been even worse. But let's be real, the Titans played the better of the two teams in the first half by a long shot. And, again, I'm not saying that this really got to the Bears themselves, but like I said, the pressure was really on them in this game. They were expected to win. They were at home. They got these high expectations, and you just kind of came out a little bit flat and looked kind of unprepared in some aspects. But I can at least give the team, even though it was by the special teams and the defense, you could give them the credit of adjusting in the second half because you came out flat and it was really clear you needed to make some adjustments quickly because the Titans, the first few drives, the Bears were stopping them, and all of a sudden they found this rhythm. And then you give them the ball back again, and they were just out coaching you, outplaying you, but you adjusted. So we've seen Bears teams not do that. So at least we did see that.
Yeah, I mean, in this game, offensively, you were just a hot mess.
And that was, yeah, and we'll get
And
into that, obviously. That
and
was a dog shit.
and the defense came out first two series just really tough.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the seventh offensive play by the Titans that they got more than 3 yards.
Right. Yeah. I mean, those first two Titans drives, they were just suffocated. They were not going anywhere. And they didn't look like they really had much of a game plan outside of vanilla play calling at all against this Bears defense. But then, like I said, they kind of found that rhythm. And next thing you knew, they were scoring a touchdown. They gashed you in a little bit on the run.
Yeah, they figured out something on the run, and they they decided they were going to try to make the linebackers move and run, and they found success on it. In that first drive, or the third drive for them, that the first one they scored, they really took it to the Bears. That fair enough. They went down there and they and then the drive after that, when they scored another touchdown, more times than not, Tyreek Stevenson is intercepting that ball in the end zone. I'm
Well,
just putting that out there.
I thought he actually grabbed that away for a split second because when the catch was made, Stevenson was on him and there was kind of that bobble as he was turning away from the camera view. For a split second, I thought Stevenson came away with that, and then all of a sudden the Titans were celebrating. That was just a crazy catch. And remember that drive too. The killer on that is they had him at 3rd and 15 pinned back deep into their own territory, and they let that 17, 18 yard, whatever it was, pass completed that kept
22.
that drive alive at 22. So it was even further than I remember, but it was 3rd and 15, and they were able to complete that pass. Now, in the second half, I felt like they did a much better job of getting pressure on Levis.
Yes,
That was
absolutely.
important.
Yeah, they did a better job of containing the run, and then they did a much better job of getting a pass rush. Um, you know, Daryl Taylor, the new guy, was a beast today.
Well, he was really the key in kind of shifting the momentum because even though you got the strip sack fumble and you settled for a field goal when you really wanted a touchdown there, it felt like at that point the Titans were kind of, I don't want to say panicking, but I think that they were starting to crumble a little bit and the pressure was starting to, ease down on them more and more and more. And then when that fumble happened, that's when things really kind of started to shift towards the Bears in their favor. Now, what was also key too is the Titans were effective running the ball for a little bit in the first half. Now, when you took the lead, you were forcing Will Levis to throw. And the fact that you were getting more pressure on him, that's why they didn't really threaten after that. I mean, the last drive that they had that ended in an interception, they had the one first pass that got them towards midfield. And then after that, Bears just suffocated them and ended the game. But you saw the difference when you weren't getting pressure on Levis, you weren't stopping the run. But then when you started getting pressure and you started to shift the momentum in the game, it's really when the Bears took over, and that's when the Titans kind of fell off because Will Levis should not have thrown that ball at Tyreek Stevenson. That was a bad pick.
Oh yeah, I mean, that was a bad decision and a bad execution. And when when he threw that. And the first time he did, there was two plays he did like that. And the first one I'm screaming, like, I think that's a fumble. The way he flicked it. It wasn't a throwing motion. It was, I'm like, that should have been a fumble. And then when he did the second one, I'm like, and I was like, I hope it was literally as he was throwing it. I'm like, I hope they intercept this because like he's making these little bitch moves where he's just throwing the ball underhand and then boom, Tyreek Stevenson there jumps it and returns it. And I jumped so high, I hit my head on the light fixture in the living room. And yeah, I'm screaming at the TV. That was a huge momentum turner. This was a game that you needed the other two phases of the game to offense.
Yeah, and I mean, when you think about it, you can say the momentum started to shift after the blocked punt return for a touchdown by Simone Biles' husband. I mean, that's really when you started to see things swing because after that play, the Titans really didn't do much on offense because at that point it was 17-10 and the Bears were able to get two field goals, then the pick six. And I mean, did the Titans even cross like midfield after that? It didn't really seem like it, but they didn't get anywhere near scoring really in the entire second half. But once you had that blocked punt return for a touchdown, they really just everything fell apart for the Titans and the Bears were able to mostly take advantage. I mean, I would have liked to have seen them score a touchdown after that fumble recovery, but that's neither here nor there. It didn't end up hurting the Bears. They ended up winning. But it was nice to see a momentum shift in favor of the Bears, like I was saying before, because we've seen how many times where something like that happens, where a punt gets blocked, or there's a bad pick, or a bad fumble, or a really dumb play call, and everything just shifts the other way. It worked in favor of the Bears today. The other thing I wanted to say about the defense was when they were starting to get pressure on Will Levis, you can tell that he was scrambling behind that line. Like his mind was scrambling. He did not look comfortable back there when they were starting to put pressure. I mean, that's why he threw multiple passes off his back foot. I know he's a young quarterback, so he might learn more as that goes along, but I mean, you made him really, really uncomfortable. And that's the important thing to get from this defense because you don't just look at sack numbers when it comes to effective pressure. When you're putting pressure and you're seeing a comfortable kind of scramble, look around, try desperation throw, that's what getting good pressure is all about. It's not always in the sack numbers. And if they can do that consistently, because I know it's a big question mark, and you're going to face better quarterbacks, but you do see the potential of what you can be as a defense if you're able to get that pressure on a quarterback late, especially.
Yeah, it's the pressure, being able to get pressure with four is going to be huge for the Bears because it allows you to use your defensive backs in the way that you want to use them. And you're going to get a lot of picks because the Bears have a really good defensive back core. And if you're not having to send extra men to blitz, and they did that at the second half, they brought more blitzes, which you don't want to have to do, but they were able to get more pressure as well just from the front four. So it's it was establishing that you could get there, and then you started mixing it up how you got there. But in that first half, the pressure wasn't there. It was a lot of coverage type pressures that Will Levis was throwing balls away, but he had these clear throwing lanes. It was frustrating to watch as a Bears fan, but the Bears really clamped down. I think this Titans team is a lot better than we gave them credit for. I know that they really struggled on offense for the most of the game, but I think I think this is actually a pretty decent team.
Yeah, and it's a first year head coach for them. It's their first game under their head coach. They were playing on the road in a really ruckus, loud environment. Like I said, the Bears had the pressure and the expectations, but the Titans were still on the road, and winning on the NFL is hard on the road. So I think that they can keep building from here. I do think they have some dudes on that team. We'll see what kind of quarterback Will Levis ends up becoming. But man, if you can consistently get pressure like you did on him late, that would just be so sweet. Because they were getting some confidence towards the end of that first half, mainly in the second quarter. The second quarter was far and away the worst quarter of the game. They were really starting to get confidence. You could see it, you could sense it, and the fact that you were able to take that all away really helped.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Will Levis made some really bad throws, but it'll be interesting to see how he looks against a defense that's not as good as the Bears. Um,
Right.
and I'm I don't know what the Jets defense will look like. They were really good last year, but we'll see. And they're playing the Jets next week. Uh, then they have the Packers week 3, which we'll talk about the Packers. When do the Titans play a bad defense here? Um, the Dolphins. Dolphins not a good defense. Week 4. It'll be interesting to see how Will Levis starts performing because I think their offensive line. They showed, especially that left side where you've got Skoronski and J.C. Latham and Cushenberry at the center position. That side is pretty dominant as far as you getting your run plays in there, and they've got aging but decent running back group. So I think this is a much better team than we gave them credit for, but the better team ended up winning.
Yeah, and like I said, you were at home, and it's higher expectations naturally when
That de-
you're.
that Titans defense is going to give people fits.
Yeah,
That's sneaky good defensive line, and you've got veterans with uh in your cornerback roster, and that defensive line is really good. They're going to give people fits.
yeah, absolutely. And they gave the Bears plenty of fits today.
Oh yeah. Um, what else did we have good for the Bears? I really liked the second half adjustments that we saw from the Flus. Last year we talked about not being able to have those halftime adjustments and really struggling. Is Flus, I was like, man, they figured out something with this running attack, and the Bears made a counter and shut it down in the second half. They scored, the Titans scored 17 points in the first half and goose egg in the second. And that was huge. And they made big plays when they needed to make big plays to help out the offense.
Yeah, there's one other thing I wanted to mention too about an adjustment that Eberflus makes, and this relates to the special teams. And one of the many elephants in the room is Velus Jones and that muffed kickoff. And after that happened, they were like, nope, that's enough of that. And then on the flip side, shout out to DeAndre Carter, who had a really nice game return wise.
Both on punts and kickoff return.
Very well done on both.
Yeah, that's his job to lose at this point. He doesn't do. I mean, it's frustrating because you can't. He's terrible as a player. Like special teams leave him in there, but like he got blown up trying to do a bubble screen to DJ Moore. He got blown up.
Yep.
He had a drop pass. Like he is not a player that you can play as a regular contributor.
No, 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 no.
And if you look at the way that they configured the active game day 45-man roster, is Tyler Scott was inactive.
Yes, he was. Healthy scratch.
And Um, I think now that I've cooled down a little bit, is Velus Jones cannot be a returner. Like you cannot have him return kicks. I don't know if he has the yips. I don't know what it is, but I think as a gunner on special teams and the versatility he has as a running back and wide receiver, I think he's probably you're going to keep him around. You just can't have him around the kickoffs. And Tyler Scott's got to have to figure something out because he can't be a returner, and he's not dynamic enough to warrant. He's not a good enough special team player, and he doesn't warrant enough on offense to make him an active roster player. Um, I I think you're going to continue to see Velus Jones as your active roster player because of that versatility, playing special teams as a gunner and running back and wide receiver when necessary.
Yeah, you can't. You can't. You can't.
It's yeah, it's just he cannot he because I mean, we put him in a run and you saw him make a really nice run and he
He
helped.
did. Yes.
And when DeAndre Swift was really struggling because the offensive line wasn't opening up holes, and DeAndre Swift is not a power back. Velus Jones is a big, strong man, and he hit that hole and got a nice run, and you're like, okay, started to get a little momentum going, and I think there's value there, but you've got to have him on a really short leash, and there's things you can't trust him to do, and you can never trust him to return kicks again. It's got to be DeAndre Carter, and then if DeAndre Carter is injured or whatever, then it's got to be Khalil Herbert. It cannot be Velus Jones ever again.
100%. And like I said, the Titans right there could have really put you in a pickle because you were able to hold them to a field goal. They were in prime position to get another touchdown and go up 14-0. And if you give up the other touchdown, it's 21-0. So you would have been facing a 21-0 deficit at one point in that game.
Yeah, it was, Velus Jones puts you in a real big hole with that. And it sucked. He there's no excusing muffing it, but it was a real bad Bears bounce when that ball hit the ground and rolled just straight into somebody's arms. You're like that's you could not draw it up better if you're the Titans.
Oh yeah,
And
because that could have just as easily bounced a different way. You could have muffed it, but you could have gotten it back if it bounced another way. But like you said, it bounced right to them.
yeah, or it doesn't bounce as far. Like it rolled pretty far because Velus is a fast man and he went running and didn't get to it. It was brutal, but he just can't be trusted. He
Nope.
cannot be trusted with a kickoff again. That's just um, you know, not not going to happen. But you know, kudos to the Bears coaching staff for just making that decision and saying nope, sorry, and that's that's that. Um, the Tory Taylor, he had some good punts.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. The crocodile punter was putting on a show.
That first punt, if it doesn't take a weird carom, you would pin them back at like the 3 yard line because you had a player down there ready to down the ball, and it just caromed away from them at a weird angle. But you had your guy down there, and then he had the one where he flipped the field. Like he's, I don't even think we saw the best of him, and he was a weapon.
Oi, oi, oi.
Um, so yeah, I think I know people. There was a lot of people that were upset that the Bears spent a fourth-round draft pick on a punter, but you know this that's part of. You look at it, and you've got a rookie quarterback and a new offensive scheme. You had better better be prepared to make some punts and flip the field for that good defense. And that's what they did.
Because that can make a big difference in a game. A
Absolutely.
huge, huge difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But um, if you had to pick something that you were concerned about as a fan going into the season, what would it have been?
Offensive line.
And how vindicated do you feel in your feelings about that?
Oh, awful.
That offensive line was so much worse than I thought it could have been.
It wasn't even one of those, they were just mediocre, but it's like, no, it was bad. I mean, the center position, just, oh,
That is the brutal one. Is Coleman Shelton was so bad that I'm like, how are you not bringing in Doug Kramer at this point? Because you did make a shift at the on the offensive line. Is you benched Nate Davis and you brought in Ryan Bates, and Ryan Bates looked okay until like I think the other team realized that his arm is still not right, and he had a little difficulty there when they would try to go to that shoulder. Um, and I think when Ryan Bates is healthy, I think he's going to be your center. Um, because Coleman Shelton was brutal.
yeah. I mean, at this point, I would rather trust Bates, even if he's not going to be spectacular. I just need competence. That's all I'm looking for.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there was other than Coleman Shelton, he was the brutal one,
Yeah.
but everybody took turns having their moment. Darnell Wright was the only one that I think played consistently well. I think he had a pretty good game, but there was a couple times Tevins got beat on inside moves. Um, we saw a couple times where Braxton Jones got beat with power moves. Nate Davis got beat, and Coleman Shelton just got beat all the time. But we just saw no consistency until the very end, the fourth quarter, when we started establishing a little bit of a run attack to run out the clock. But man, you put our rookie quarterback Caleb Williams in a spot where he really struggled, and there was plenty of things that Caleb Williams it was his fault, but it's really hard to ask a rookie quarterback to have to do something special with where he's constantly under pressure and there's no pocket.
Well, and it also hurts too when you couldn't really establish a run early on. And like you said, they did a much better job on that last drive. Uh, I mean, that was their best offensive drive of the game, was that last one where you just ate up some clock and you were able to get into Titans territory and at least pin them deep at the end there. Kind of sad to say that was their best drive, but I would say that it was. But, there's something to be said about scheming with a bad line because, like I said on this pod before, the Bears don't really have a bona fide gasher up the middle. So DeAndre Swift is going to find holes and be shifty. And Khalil Herbert, sure, he could run up the middle a bit. He's been running on bad offensive lines before, but he's not a big, huge guy that's just going to bowl over everybody. So that makes running the ball up the middle that much harder. And what did we see on that last drive? We saw end arounds. We saw DeAndre Swift's going to the outside and leaping. And then when you tried to get what you would hoped would be a game-sealing first down, you were doing screens. You were doing a screen and you lost yards because of that. And what worries me is that you're just never going to be able to trust running it up the gut because there are situations where you have to do that. I know Khalil Herbert got one first down on 4th and 1, but that was 4th and 1. The fact of the matter is that you've had a number of times where it was 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, where it was manageable, but you didn't get those yards that you needed. And we saw at the end of the game, you didn't. 3rd and 5, there are offenses out there with a good offensive line and good backs where you can trust them to say, go up the gut, you can get those 5 yards. And I just don't think that this Bears offense, the way it's constructed, is going to be able to do that.
There was one play where it was 3rd and 1, and they put Khalil Herbert in there to try to run it, and he started dancing in the backfield.
Yeah.
And I understand the benefit sometimes of dancing in the backfield, waiting for a hole to open. When it's 1 yard, you've just got to hit it.
Right. You go forward and you just push forward. You get the forward progression.
Yeah.
You're not trying to get 5, 6 yards. You're just trying to get the one. And I'm going to go back to one of my favorite running backs recently. When we had Jordan Howard, that was a guy where you could say, oh, okay, just go right up the middle, pound it through, and you could get that first down. Like I said, with DeAndre Swift, that's a guy that's going to be dancing around, shifting around, going to the outside, finding those open holes, but he's not going to be that power guy that just outmuscles the opponent. I guess the closest we have potentially is Roschon Johnson, but he was a healthy scratch today. Travis Homer was playing and Khalil Herbert was
I
playing.
don't know how healthy Roschon Johnson was. He's been banged up all preseason. So I know he was healthy enough to play, but he was on the injury list as limited all week. Um,
That something
but
could be bugging him, sure.
but I think there was a reason that Velus Jones and uh, and Travis Homer were getting carries because they're otherwise I think you know one of them is inactive and Roschon Johnson is in, but I don't think he's fully healthy. But I don't think he's unwell enough to be on the IR. I think he's just banged up, and just gonna let him get healthy as a one of your guys that's not on the 45-man roster.
Yeah. And again, I don't really know how good Roschon Johnson's going to be even when he is fully healthy, but yeah, it would just be nice if I could trust my team to run it up the gut for a few yards. That's all I'm
Uh,
that's what
yeah,
I'm trying to say.
yeah. The offensive line was brutal, and the elephant in the room, Caleb Williams didn't look very good.
No. Now, let's look at what didn't look good. To me, the accuracy was off.
Mm-hmm,
I think there were some jitters.
mm-hmm.
Um, the play that got me swearing up a storm, I get he's a rookie, growing pains. I know, serenity now, serenity now. You have to get rid of that ball on that sack. I was screaming at the TV to get rid of that ball. Because you want to talk about an early momentum shift, you were in position to at very least get a field goal. At the very least, you would have kicked a field goal. And he had a second, he was under pressure, getting hit, but he had a second life. That second life should have been throwing the ball away. There was nowhere to go with that.
And I'm going to tell you what he was thinking, and I don't agree with it. I'm just going to tell you though the reality of it is he had the first man in there, and I think he knew he could get by him and roll out, and he was not anticipating that the difference between playing in college football and the NFL is in college that one guy is there, and when you beat him, you can roll out and then set yourself and throw. I don't think he was anticipating that second guy, the one who got the sack, and because he made his move, and then the other guy's there making the play, and I get the first guy. If you don't avoid him, you're not going to be able to get the ball off to get the throw it away. But when you beat him, just wing it 70 yards out of bounds, past the line of scrimmage, live to fight another day. Because you're right, you kick a field goal there instead of losing 19 yards.
Right.
Uh,
So hopefully that's just a learning experience right there, because I think most rookie quarterbacks go through that very similar thing, like you said, because college and the NFL is different. Uh, Here's what I'm gonna say, and I want your take on it. With the accuracy issues, and maybe just having some jitters. I mean, because you should have hit Keenan Allen for a touchdown. Um,
mhm.
you had, what was it, third and a few yards, and he tried to bomb it deep, and it went to the back of the end zone.
That that one I'm going to blame the uh, that was I'll tell you what happened on that one. It was supposed to go to DJ Moore as a quick pass to the left. And when he got the snap, it he bobbled it and the timing was
Right,
off.
right, right,
And so he went, so that play is blown up. So the problem is you had Roma Dunze and Keenan Allen running the same route in the same space. So you had two defensive backs covering the two guys in one spot. And he had to heave it over the Roma Dunze. If it had been the roles reversed and Keenan Allen where Roma Dunze where Keenan Allen was, I think you could have thrown it high and had at least given Roma Dunze a 50-50 shot of of a jump ball, but he threw it high and out, so there wasn't a chance of an interception. But it was too high for Keenan Allen to go up and get.
right.
That
So he was put in that situation. We can
Yeah,
agree with that.
yeah,
So
it was a tough one because the he bobbled the snap and he had one option really to was when once that option was bypassed, then the routes that the receivers ran, and we'll never know for certain, but I'm assuming that either Keenan Allen or Roma Dunze they ran the wrong route.
right. So where I'm going to try to go with this when you look at the game as a whole, because he recognized that, even though it looked absurd, and you saw the misses to Allen and a few other. What I what I'm trying to look at from a positive perspective is the reads were there. He understood what was going on the field for the most part. He just wasn't hitting them. And you feel like, okay, that's something that he can do. He just needs to get better at that, or just needs to, maybe after his first game, just focus on that. But we've seen rookie quarterbacks do much worse in terms of making mistakes that are costly. The offense looked terrible. Caleb Williams did not look good at all, but at least he didn't throw the back-breaking interception, because
No,
I do think that he understood the reads. He understood what was going on in the field. He just didn't execute. That's my
yes,
ultimate point.
he didn't throw none. There was a couple of ones where they got tipped and could have been intercepted.
But
I
that
think he,
wasn't him. That
yeah,
was the defenders getting past the line and tipping the ball.
yeah, that was no throwing lanes. Except the one where the defender actually made a really good play, stuck his hand in, and popped it up, and it was the one where Roma. So it got tipped up, and I'm like, oh man, it's gonna get a Roma Dunze high pointed that so high in the air. I was astonished. And then he fumbled, and then Tevin Jenkins recovered it for the first down, which was a wild ass play. But Roma Dunze going up and high pointing that ball was incredible. Nobody else was going up that high.
Right,
Nobody.
right. And
And
again, that was a tipped ball. That
it,
wasn't like some just god awful throw.
yeah, that thing is he did not make any bad he made bad throw. He didn't make any dangerous throws. Um, I think I think his understanding of where the like reading the defense I think they confused him on some things, but I think he knew where those defenders were, and um and he did not put that ball in harm's way, which is huge because that's where rookies struggle, is throwing interceptions.
Yeah, right.
Um, I did not like the offensive coordinator's play calling a lot. Is you were really struggling with the runs, and I get that your goal was to put your rookie quarterback in positions where he doesn't have second and long, third and long. But when your running back is getting 0 or negative yards, you're making it worse because you're taking a down away and you're adding extra yards. So he really did a number on him.
It's
Um,
just like, again, like every year of our existence, the struggle to get 4 or 5 yards when all you needed was 4 or 5 yards. It's like trying to do brain surgery blindfolded. It just, it was so gross how eerily similar some of it felt. Like we've been doing this for years, whether it was Matt Nagy or, whoever was Luke Getzey, and now this. It's like, geez, you need 4 yards, and you feel like it's the biggest challenge in the world. Ugh, it gave me so many icky feelings throughout this game. And to your point to the play calling, you remember how I mentioned the screen pass where they lost yards on their final offensive play?
mhm.
When you could have had a game sealing first down, or at the very least moved a few yards closer and not lose yards there. If you could have just not, because they read that screen like a book, and they read a lot of their screens. I mean, again, they did a better job on that final drive up until then to create some misdirection and be able to get some yards on the outside. But throughout the game, you saw it's like instances again where you're trying to make something happen behind the sticks, and it just it drives me nuts. It drives me nuts, and I thought we were done with that, and hopefully things just function better as we go along. But I'm like, are we watching Matt Nagy and Luke Getzey again? Like, are we really going through this again? Also, was it the one drive? Was it towards the end of the first half or sometime in the third quarter? You'll know what I'm talking about. But it looked like they were actually kind of starting to find a rhythm a little bit. And then you ran a wildcat.
Mhm.
And the wildcat, listen, it was a positive yard play, but you didn't do anything after that. And you get momentum. You're thinking you're getting somewhere, and you run a wild. I don't get that. It's the NFL. Why
It,
are you running a wildcat in the NFL?
yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that.
It wasn't the worst outcome of the game. I just thought it was very strange when you were finally starting to find something.
Yeah, I'm just ready for, if we can get a 3 game stretch in a row where we don't have to hear our quarterback say, I will go back, I need to be better. We'll go back and watch the film, clean it up, and be better next week. Can we get 3 games in a row where our quarterback doesn't say that, where they're better and they don't have to worry about that and they don't get that question?
Yeah, that would be nice.
Um, yeah. So in this game, it was a lot of lows, but you got the victory, and honestly, that's important. That's the most important thing at the end of the game, or at the end of the day, is getting that win, because your window to win has started already.
Yep, the the
You're not in a rebuild anymore.
the clock has started. They've tapped the top. It's like, all right, timer starts now.
Yep. Once you've established that you are bringing back Matty Eberflus and you handpicked your quarterback with the number 1 overall pick, your clock started ticking. And um, and so it is your time to start winning. And I think this offense, there if you there were times when you watched Caleb Williams and the throw he was trying to make, and you had a guy open, and there was either timing was off because of pass rush, or the hands went up and deflected a pass and knocked it down. It's because there's no throwing lanes. You didn't get the completion. But even in that short time, you could see with against veteran defensive backs, guys open. Keenan Allen was consistently open in that game.
Yeah, and it's, you had the one where Caleb Williams missed early in the game, and then you had the one where Caleb made his best throw of the game,
Keenan
and
Allen dropped
Keenan
a
Allen
touchdown.
dropped it. That was
It,
the best throw by Caleb Williams, not even close.
Keenan Allen doesn't. You put that ball on the numbers like that for a touchdown, he's catching 98 out of 100 of those,
Yes.
and he dropped it. and
Yes.
and that completely changed the a lot of this game, because that would have changed the momentum right then and there. It was a little bit of a deflator. The numbers, when you look at the numbers at the end of the game, it's like, we'll talk more about Jordan Love and the Packers, but if you look at Jordan Love's numbers, and I don't know if you watched that game at all.
I saw some of the highlights. I didn't see the actual
So
game when it
there
was happening.
there was a sequence where Jordan Love uh, threw a ball that should have been intercepted. The guy just dropped it. Defender just dropped it. And then in the next play, there was another interception, and I think it was a penalty that negated that one. And and then they turned around on the third play. So after two what should have been interceptions, he threw to a 70-yard touchdown there was a wide open guy. Ends up being a 70-yard touchdown and a broken play. And uh the only defender that was anywhere close slipped on a bad field. And so if you were to take that 70-yard touchdown pass away and make that an interception, which it should have been, is Jordan Love is under 50% completion, and his passer rating is like 49, which is terrible. And this is a guy that people talked about as being arguably one of the people that could win the MVP this year. It happens. It happens. You have bad games. And, Caleb Williams had what we could probably call arguably the worst game of he could possibly have. And when you think about it, it wasn't good, but it wasn't terrible. He didn't do anything to lose them that game. And he's going to bounce back from this. He's going to learn. He's going to watch that tape. And the Bears hopefully do right by him and help him out by rolling him out a little bit. We didn't see any rollouts. He just really didn't roll out very much. And that was really frustrating as a fan, knowing what Caleb Williams is best at.
They didn't do it for Justin Fields last year under Luke Getsy. They didn't do it in week 1. Hopefully that changes. Because yeah, I agree. You need to do more of that. The play action wasn't working, and you saw him run, but it's because he was being chased for most of the part.
Yeah. Yep. And I don't want to see him running very much.
No, neither do I. Neither do I. And there's something to be said too about looking at how the numbers look, looking at the game film, looking at everything that happened. And I do feel like in this case, outside of the dropped Keenan Allen pick or Keenan Allen touchdown, the numbers pretty much reflect the performance, right?
Yeah.
It's not one of those games where it's like, well, he only threw for this many yards, but he had like 3, 4 major drops from his receivers. The Keenan Allen one was really the big one. Everything else, the numbers kind of, those incompletions were incompletions. There weren't a whole lot of massive drops outside the Keenan Allen one. But yeah, you hope you learn a few things and you progress forward. Because there were times where I was watching, frankly, and I was kind of sick to my stomach. And I kept trying to say, don't go overboard, don't go overboard, but uh at times it was hard not to just mentally as a fan. And I know it's not fair to do after one game. And I know they're going to work and try to work with him and he's going to try to learn and grow. I just hope we see some progress as we keep going here because you can't play like this against the Texans next week if you have
No,
any chance at winning.
no. But I will say this, the next completion that Caleb Williams has, he will move past former punter Brad Maynard as the 91st passing yards leader for the Chicago Bears historically.
Great. That's awesome.
Brad Maynard is on this list. Brad Maynard has 94 complete career passing yards for the Bears with 2 touchdowns.
Wow, that many?
Yes. And his passer rating is 153.3.
Talk about Sid Luckman. Why aren't we talking about Brad Maynard?
I know. Yeah, so there's just a lot of things to clean up. And I think it starts with that offensive line is what are you going to do? It's Coleman Shelton cannot have another game like that. That's he was so bad. He was so bad. I can't wait to see what his Pro Football Focus grade was. It's got to be like a 3. It was so bad. I already saw what the rest of the offensive line numbers look like, and they sort of matched up with what I sort of saw with the eyeball test is Darnell Wright was actually pretty good. And then the other guys were okay. But Coleman Shelton is just going to be brutal. I know it.
It almost made me pine for Cody Whitehair. Almost. Almost. Current form Cody Whitehair, not in prime Cody Whitehair, was actually pretty good.
Yeah. But, next week we've got primetime game against Houston. And the Bears, CJ Stroud came out and had another really good game. And Joe Mixon was huge for them, running for 159 yards. The Bears are going to have to stop him and force CJ Stroud to be a passer, and he's good at it. He's going to do it, but make them one dimensional. I think that's going to be a key. Defensively, Anthony Richardson looked really good against them. But they didn't run very well against them. So the Bears are going to have to scheme something up because I don't know if you're going to be able to run against the Texans.
And that's the thing they're probably going to want to make them do. You're going to want to make their rookie quarterback on the road throw the ball.
Yeah, you can't rely on a pick six and a blocked punt return for a touchdown to win you in Houston. And you're not going to be able to force CJ Stroud to do dumb stuff like Will Levis did. That's not a recipe for success this coming week. You're going to have to they're going to have to do something to establish this ground game, and whether that's maybe it's short passing to set up, like the Patriots used to do with Tom Brady, is use where they didn't have a dominant run offensive line or a big running back. They use short passes to the running back to in lieu of the running game, and that works just as well. You've got to get those defensive backs or the defensive linemen on their heels and not pinning their ears back. So maybe it's keeping them running on the outside and do more outside things. But whatever it is you've got to open up some lanes and get some running room, and you've got to protect your quarterback better.
Yes, yes, you do. And I really hope they have some serious conversations at Hallis Hall this week on how they're going to try to protect their quarterback better because you're going to have to scheme it. You're going to have the right personnel. And the plan with rotating Davis in and out, I don't think that worked very well.
No, no, that didn't work. You've got to figure this out, and uh, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but it's going to be. I think, if you can solve a few things this week, that you can make this a game against Houston. Houston is definitely not a juggernaut or unbeatable. They almost lost today to an Indianapolis team that's not bad, but they're not a uh, they're not a definitive, playoff team.
Look, they're not on the level of the Chiefs or the Ravens or the Bills or anything like that, or even the Texans. I do think though, Indy's kind of sneaky. They got something to them, and I know they lost today, but
Oh, I'm not saying, yeah, they're not the Raiders, they're not the Panthers, but they're not the Chiefs, they're not the 49ers. They're one of those teams that's going to be on the in the hunt graphic for the rest of the season.
sure, sure, sure.
So
Yeah, no,
they're
yeah, I get you.
and I I think, you know, my hope is that that's where the Bears level is, and you could see that they went and they uh almost beat the Texans today, and um you know, hopefully the Bears are able to fare better defensively, because I think the key to that one is Joe Mixon just running like gangbusters and destroying you know, the NFL average running back per game number, team number. I think last year NFL teams averaged 112 yards rushing, and Joe Mixon ran for almost 160 himself, and he didn't even have any like huge gashing runs. His long was 13, so he really was just grinding away. Um,
And that's what you kind of saw early on from the Titans against the Bears defense was grinding away at the ground game.
yeah, but Taylor from the Colts, he ran 16 times for only 4. So that's the scary part to me, is if Houston is not going to give up any ground game, they're going to put Caleb Williams in passing plays. And I I don't love the Colts. I mean, the Houston's defensive backs, but you're gonna have to figure out ways to scheme guys open and get some plays going, because it's, if not, this is gonna be a long day, and you want to be able to stay in this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just quickly around the NFL is as tangentially with the Bears, is Luke Getsy's offense. He can blame Justin Fields all he wants, but Justin Fields is on the other side of the country, and the Getsy offense stunk today too, with an NFL pocket passing quarterback.
Oh, and there was a fight too.
Oh, I didn't see the fight.
Yeah, there was a fight. Go look it up.
Um, Minshew put up good number. I mean, 25 of 33 for 257 yards and a touchdown, but that Luke Getsy offense, no bueno. And you look, uh, and Harbaugh does what Harbaugh does. He had a running back run 10 carries for 135 yards, 11 carries for 26 yards. And Justin Herbert was efficient. 17 to 26, 144 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. That was the Harbaugh formula, and he came in and that's what he implemented. Um, so, but Getsy's offense stunk, and uh, Justin Fields looked okay. Didn't have any interceptions. Um, had a good game on the ground. 17 to 23 for 156 yards, no interceptions. Um, got them to 18 points and beat the Falcons, who are, this one of the Super Bowl dark horses.
Yeah, Falcons did not look good today. Watt really shut their asses down.
I mean, telling you, Kirk Cousins gets a little bit of that pressure, and he's not a good quarterback.
I'm
That
putting
guy,
a lot of stock on Bijan Robinson this year in my fantasies, by the way.
yeah, I mean, he got no touchdowns today.
I know.
Um, and let's see, is there any other? Oh, obviously the Green Bay Packers lost Jordan Love at the end of the game to an MCL injury, so he's going to be out 3 to 6 weeks.
Which is honestly best case scenario for them.
Oh, absolutely. Is I watched that play and I was like, man, I think he's done.
A
The
lot of
way
people did, yeah.
I mean, you could watch. I don't know if everybody listening watched the play. If you're squeamish, don't. You could see a pop.
Yeah.
You could see a pop. I was like, ugh. And I
Too
know,
many people were putting that on my TL. I'm like, stop.
yeah, I can't with those knee injuries, man. I can't.
I've had knee injuries and they're the worst.
Uh, but I know a lot of people are like Jalen Carter, dirty play. I don't think it was a dirty play. He was like from his angle, he didn't know that, he just saw that Jordan Love is still standing and doesn't know if the ball's thrown away or what, and tried to, put his legs together and pull him down. I don't think it was a dirty play at all.
I mean, I don't think he was intentionally trying to do anything dirty. It was a really unfortunate break. But again, like I said, that could have been much worse. Much, much, much worse. So the question is, do they go with
Malik Willis.
Malik Willis or do they call Ryan Tannehill?
I think it's going to depend on if it's going to be the 3 weeks or the 6 weeks. If they think it's going to be 6 weeks, they might call Ryan Tannehill because I think by Malik Willis is not going to keep you in this, and things are going to be good. The Vikings looked really good today, and the Bears are an up and coming team. You don't want to be fourth place and starting off 0-6 or 1-5 or 2-4. That's a big hole to overcome.
Well, I do think that with LaFleur's scheming, whoever you put in there, if you stay afloat and you get Love back, they'll probably be okay. But you do have to come away with a few wins here.
Jordan Love didn't look good. I mean, that happened at the end of the game. Jordan Love did not look good. There was a lot of bad passes. I mean, he was 50% passing. And like I said, is if you take away that one broken play, um, that his quarterback rating was like 49.
Yeah, and Jalen Hurts threw some really bad picks in that game too. I just watching those highlights and reading what happened, they were playing on a soccer field, and I'm surprised there weren't more injuries in that game.
The turf made Soldier Field from a few years ago look good.
Yeah. And when that happens, it's actually really funny because I saw Soldier Field trending on Twitter that night. I'm like, wait, what? And then it was all about comparing the turf. I'm like, oh yeah, that plays.
Yeah. So here's the first 6 games that the Packers have. They already lost to the Eagles. They're home against the Colts next week or this coming week. Then week 3, they go to Tennessee to play the Titans. Then week 4, they're at home against the Vikings. Week 5, they go to Los Angeles to play the Rams. And week 6, they're playing the Cardinals. And the Cardinals actually looked pretty good today. Uh, and
Yeah, I think the Cardinals are definitely going to be a bit better than they were last year.
I mean, that offense was cooking. The
Yeah.
defense is no good, but if you're struggling to put up points, that offense is gonna, pose you problems. The Rams, I think, are gonna be decent. The Vikings looked really good. We saw the Titans. The Titans were not a bad ball club, and we saw what the Colts are. So that's not an easy schedule to begin with. And if you're going to be without Jordan Love that whole time, that's brutal. And then you come out of that, even when he comes back, then you got Texans going to Jacksonville, the Lions before your bye week. I'm
Right, yeah. So it'll be a battle for them. I'll be curious to see what they do.
Yeah. Uh, and then the last thing I want to talk about tangentially to the Bears is, man, it's looking like the Panthers are the worst team in football again.
Yeah,
And
they got their asses kicked by the Saints today.
the very first pass that Bryce Young made today was an interception.
Ooh.
It is looking very good, like the Bears will get the number 33 pick.
Give it to me. Give me that 33rd pick,
Uh,
please.
it was, I mean, they got smoked by the Saints, 47-10. Yeah, Bryce Young was 13 for 30, two interceptions, no touchdowns, and a 32.8 quarterback rating.
Mm,
Brutal.
not good.
Uh,
Oh, Scott Fowler on Twitter literally just came up. Somebody retweeted it. Some progress for Panthers QB Bryce Young. In the first half, his very first pass was intercepted. In the second half, he didn't get picked off until his second pass. Oof.
uh, that's brutal.
Hey, you know what's funny fact about today's game? Actually, two funny facts. So, first of all, Caleb Williams, his first quote touchdown throw ever at Soldier Field, quote, was not a touchdown, but a 2-point conversion.
Yeah,
It's just kind of funny to think about.
I mean they had a nice play on that one.
I'm so glad they went for two there to go up by seven. That was a good call, and that was a good play call. You kept it simple. Swift was wide open. He was, going from one side to the other, completely unguarded. No chance they weren't converting it. Thing of beauty. Really glad on that. The other thing is, you didn't even have 150 yards worth of offense,
No,
and
you
you
were bad.
won.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were making 2005 references because the Bears that year, I was in sixth grade, but I remember it well. The Bears went 11-5 that year and won the NFC North, and they had like a bottom five offense. They were they had a terrible, terrible offense that year. And like you were having games where Kyle Orton was like averaging 150 passing yards a game. Thomas Jones was a really good running back. He was the source of a lot of your offense. And then you had the defense that helped put you in positions to get field goals, basically, because that's how you won games. So it kind of brought a lot of people back to 2005. And I'm like, that's funny for now, but can we not do that again? Because I don't want that to be a regular thing. The whole idea behind this was for that not to be a regular thing.
Uh, heart attack team. Can't handle it.
Yeah. This was the only This was only the second time since 1971 the Bears have won a game with fewer than 150 yards of total offense. The other win was in 2006. Was that the comeback game against the Cardinals?
I don't know.
Because that game was
Probably.
all like fumble recoveries and Devin Hester touchdowns.
Yeah. It was the defense and Devin Hester. That was the all the scoring. It was all in the second half.
Yeah, sound familiar. As uh as Biff Tannen would say when he was ancient, there's something very familiar about all this.
Pulling a Biff Tannen reference out.
Hey, I love Biff Tannen references. Hey, did you know that in Back to the Future Part 2, that you remember when old Biff and young Biff are listening to that football game and he's got the sports almanac?
Yeah.
He proving to Biff that it was real. That game was apparently that was a real game that happened.
Really?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Huh.
Let me look it up because I'm trying to remember who exactly it was, but let's see. Back to the Future Part 2 football game. Yeah, so UCLA versus Washington, November 12th, 1955. I bet you $1,000,000 UCLA wins it 19-7. What are you, deaf old man? He said it was over. You lost. Oh, yeah. So behind the scenes, internet research yields that there was indeed a game between fourth-ranked UCLA and Washington on November 12th, 1955 at UCLA. And the final score was in fact 1917. UCLA's win came with 18 seconds to play when Jim Decker kicked a 35-yard field goal. The game is the one mentioned in the film, with Decker's name being mentioned as the one who kicked the goal for UCLA. In the broadcast given in the film, the announcer could be heard declaring UCLA the winner after the successful field goal, while the end result was correct. This is evidence that the broadcast was not genuine from the period, as multiple seconds still remained on the clock with the final kickoff remaining. So it was dramatized a tad to make it seem like it was a buzzer beating field goal when it wasn't. It was made with under a minute left, but that game really did happen.
Huh. Tangentially here, there's a guy who has like a YouTube channel. I think it's YouTube. He like people will send him like a movie and where somewhere in the movie in the background there'll be like a TV on with a sporting event, and he'll find what that sporting event is based on the either the image or like the 2-second clip. He'll figure out what it is and what game that was.
That's really cool because I remember reading about remember the scene in Ferris Bueller's Day Off when they're at the Cubs game and Principal Rooney's at the pizza parlor and the game is on the TV. Like people were researching what game that was and they found out which game it was. So that I thought was really, really cool.
Yeah, it's wild. Like this guy will be like, well, okay, let's look at the uniforms. This is clearly a hockey game. Like there was one where it was like it might have been um the X Files, and somebody was watching TV in the background, and you could just see a little bit of the background on the TV. And it's like, okay, well, let's look at the uniforms. This clearly is not an NHL game. And then they looked at the uniforms, and then they looked at the, what was on the boards, and they're like, okay, then we found that, they just like he was able to just piece things together with no information. And he's like, okay, well, we found that this team has those uniforms, and this other team must have been this uniform, and these are the games that they played against each other. And this guy with this number was they only had a guy with this number in these seasons. And then he just pieces it all together. He's like, okay, well, this game was, January 3rd, 1987. You're like, how the hell? And he tells you how he does it, and you're still amazed. I'll have to try to
Yeah,
find this guy and send it to you. It is amazing.
that is really cool because sometimes you don't always notice, but there's subtly games on just like in the background of like movies and TV shows, and you don't really notice it until somebody like points it out or you really like squint and you take a look. It's really interesting when you see that stuff. Because I always think of, you know, in addition to Ferris Bueller's Day Off, you and we always reference Fargo and the hockey game that was being played on the TV when they're at the house. And there was what movie was it? I think it was what movie am I thinking of? There was a movie where there was a baseball game, a Yankees game. Oh, you know what it was? It was a Disney movie. It was called First Kid. It was Sinbad. But I remember they were watching like I think it might have been a playoff game between the Yankees and the Orioles. Like the security guards were hanging out and they were watching a game in the background. I believe it was from like Yankees Orioles playoffs or something, or it was some significant game. And it's kind of cool when you can pinpoint like big games that are in movies or television, but there's a million examples of it.
Okay, I think I found the dude. Oh, his name is Ian Arujo. I'm trying to find his. What is he? It's on a TikTok channel. Um, oh, here it is. Is the guy? No, that's not him. Where is? Yeah, meet Ian Araujo, the amateur TikTok sleuth who identifies the sports games in the background of TVs and movies. Um, the the Athletic did an article about him. Uh,
Wow, that's pretty cool.
come on, my my Athletic subscription is not loading. I'll have to send it to you, but it's I'll post it in the notes for the episode too, for anybody listening. It's actually really cool how this guy does it, and I'm just it's actually pretty amazing. Um,
Yeah, that's really cool. That stuff always interests me. Like, where do they find this footage? How do they get it? It, that stuff's cool.
oh, here we go. At No Problem Gambler on TikTok.
All right, I'll take a further look into that.
Yeah, here we go. Asking you one last time to find the baseball game in The Office season 9 episode 22. So when they're all in the bar and there's a sports game on in the background.
That's so cool.
Super interesting. Is there anything else football that you want to talk about?
I just wanted to say one thing. My friends and I last night, we were hanging out just in downtown Downers, and we were at a sports bar for a little bit, having some dinner, having a drink, and we saw the end of that NIU win over Notre Dame. Did you see that?
I saw a little bit of the game and I saw the end where they blocked the kick.
I mean, that was insane. That was absolutely insane. And then I saw my Fighting Illini upset Kansas. So that was quite the night of football on Saturday.
Yeah, and what's wild is Notre Dame paid NIU $1.8 million to make that game at uh, South Bend.
I
So they
know.
got $1.8 million and won in South Bend.
Yeah. Could you imagine saying, hey, we want to get an easy win against you. Here's $1.4. Fuck you. You suck, but that's $1.4 million. All right, we'll take this $1.4 million. Oh, by the way, we're going to hand you an L as well.
Uh, Super wild. My Michigan team got smoked. Their season is so done.
Yeah, Yeah, that was an ass kicking.
Yeah, it was not a good game. College football was done for me. I'll just be scouting away for the NFL draft because my team is done.
Were you going bleh, bleh, bleh after the game?
Oh yeah, I knew it was not going to be a good game after I watched them struggle to win week one. I'm like, man, they lost too many people and they lost their head coach, and this is not going to be a good year. And they it was not.
Yeah, that was a tough transition. When you lose your head coach, lose a lot of talent to the NFL. It's hard to just immediately rebuild all that.
Yep. Oh well. At least we got a national championship last year.
You made the most of your window,
Yep. All right. Should we talk a little bit of baseball here?
I guess.
Um, you know, After that Cubs went on that run, and it we talked about how important that series against Pittsburgh was, and the fact that the Cubs just didn't look good, blew any opportunity they had because they have this really tough stretch with the Yankees and the Phillies and the Dodgers. And sure enough, they're playing the Yankees, and pitching wise, they did really well.
They had a great series from an arm standpoint.
Yeah, is what they gave up 6 runs the whole series to the
Yeah,
Yankees, and you lose the series after only giving up 6 runs. How does that happen? How
when
does
you get shut out in back-to-back games.
like it's bad. Uh,
They had a
so
grand total of like what, 5, 6 hits the first two games, something like that.
something like that.
They
It,
had
it
one hit on Friday. I know that.
so here you are back to um, you're 5 games back from the wild card.
We don't even need to talk about that anymore. It's
Yeah,
over.
it's over. Yeah, that's basically my point. Is no there's no point in looking at this because the Mets the Mets are absolutely being carried by P candidate, and there's 0% catch them. There's what do they got, like 18 games left, something like that. That's to make up 5 games in 18 days and have to beat the Dodgers and the Phillies. Just it's stupid. It's your season is over. The best you can hope for is to hold off the Cardinals and the Reds and finish in second place and get your consolation prize. It's the best you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, oh well. I mean, uh, it's brutal to sit here and know it's been 4 straight years without getting to the postseason. Now you're just trying to ride it out.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what you can do. I mean, um, yeah, who do they play the rest of the season? Da, 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 is you got you're going to the Dodgers. They're probably on a flight right now. So you go 3 in LA, then 3 in Colorado, then you come home to play Oakland, then Washington. Those are winnable games other than the Dodgers. Then you go to Philly for 3, and then wrap it up with the Reds. So you can't even play spoiler to anybody.
No.
like, because the race for the wild card is really tightened up in the NL with the Mets playing so well. So right now, the Padres have the the top wild card seed, and then 2 games behind them is Arizona, and then 1 game behind them is the Mets and the Braves tied. So it would be nice if you could play one of those teams and play spoiler, knock one of them out because you can't make it. So might as well beat somebody and make them angry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well.
And the White Sox, boy, do they find new ways to lose games.
Yeah, and then you have other teams' announcers saying the White Sox just went full White Sox when former White Sox legend Eloy Jimenez hits a pop up with the bases loaded and Miguel Vargas converges with, I think it was Benintendi, and they drop it and 3 runs score. And
That was so bad. That was like that was like the beginning of Major League the movie bad.
yeah,
Like,
it really was. It really did look like something out of a movie script.
yeah, you couldn't have written that to be was. And they at least won 2 of their last 10, and they're on a 1-game winning streak. But the only way they're not going to lose 120 games is they have to play 500 baseball.
Good luck.
They've got to play 500 baseball to not lose 120 games. So they're going to lose 125 games. Like their winning percentage right now is 229. What is
My
that?
goodness.
What does that figure to? 229 times 162 game season is 37 wins. So they're at 33 right now. So they win 4 out of their last 18. So 14. So that would put you at 125 losses.
Not good.
Like, no matter what you do, like you're not good. Is let's see, on 30 plus 18. Trying to see the division here. Is there any team or any division where no matter what mathematically there's no way possible they couldn't be the worst team in baseball.
Well, yeah, because and I was talking about this with some friends last night. The fact that you see some really awful teams like the Marlins and the A. I mean, the A's have been better than I thought they would be, but they're still not good. But you got the Marlins and the Rockies, and it's like they're awful, but they're still miles ahead of the Sox.
I mean, the Rockies are 11 games better than the White Sox, and they're terrible. If the White Sox win the last 18 games they have on the schedule, they'd be at 51 wins. The next worst team in baseball is at 54 wins. So there's zero chance that they could be out the cellar of any division in baseball. That's how bad this team is.
Yeah. When all you have to talk about is what kind of historically bad things can you do?
Yeah. Um, it's just brutal. Um, I, they got a big win today, and
Hey, both their wins against Baltimore and the Red Sox have been by a decent margin, right?
yeah, Chris Flexen actually pitched a good game.
He finally won.
Yeah, I know. What's his record now? Oh wait,
Probably
did he get the decision?
did he?
I don't think he got the decision.
Oh,
I think
I
it
don't know.
was
I wasn't. I barely.
um yeah, it was 2-2 when he left the game. So he
But
didn't
they
even get
won
the
a game in which he started because he wasn't just getting the record for losses decisions in a row. It was just games in general they lost that he started, I believe.
All right. So he's pitched in 30 games. His record is 2-14.
Mm. And I know that records are what they are for a pitcher, especially these days, but that's still
2-14 is not good. Yeah. At least Luis Robert got his OPS up to 669. uh,
hooray.
so bad. Um, yeah. What else we got? Angel Reese out for the season,
Yeah, that's a
which is
bummer.
it's a bummer. And I do want to jump into this conversation about rookie of the year for the WNBA. And I know it's a hot topic, and I, it's got to be Caitlin Clark, but I I don't think it's by such a wide margin as people think. Angel Reese had an amazing season.
Yeah, she did. She really, really did. And if you sit down and watch the games, you can see the difference that she made in those games. I mean, there's very worthy competition in this league now, and clearly people have caught on to it. And I think the fact that, yes, I think Caitlin Clark is the best player in the game. Obviously, there's no doubt about that. But the fact that there are others out there where you can at least say, hey, you're worthy of being in the conversation, including Angel Reese, it makes everything even more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's people that just like, oh yeah, 100% of the votes for rookie of the year should go to Caitlin Clark. And I don't think so. And it really comes down to what you value is, there's a role, and there's people that have made the Hall of Fame playing the type of game that she plays. I mean, Angel Reese is a hell of a defensive player and an amazing rebounder. Dennis Rodman went to the Hall of Fame doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not always just about scoring points. Obviously, that's the ultimate goal for the team, but there are role players that do things. There are guys that rebound. There are people that are high on assists. There are people that help set screens. There's multiple roles which you could be good at in basketball, even if you're not scoring 30 plus points a night.
Yeah, I think Angel Reese she has been great in the city, and she's been a hell of a player. That was an amazing pick. It was the Caitlin Clark pick was a no-brainer. And what was Angel Reese picked?
Was it sixth or seventh?
Something like that. So like there was a lot of people that were, a good number of people that were picked that weren't Angel Reese, and Angel Reese has been just fabulous. And that was she's a grinder player, and I think that is a blue collar lunch pail type player, and that's who we love in Chicago.
Blue
And
collar lunch pail. That
lunch
Angel
pail,
Reese.
that she's Chris Zorich if he played women's basketball. That Chris Zorich, he was a hell of a player.
Didn't think we'd be talking about him on this podcast tonight, but here we are.
You know what my favorite part about Chris Zorich is? Do you know what his mom's name was?
What?
Zora Zorich.
Love it.
Zora
Love it.
Zorich. Chris Zorich is such a Chicago Bears name.
It really is. You gotta, it's like it was meant to be.
That Chris Zorich. uh, it's funny. You listen to sports radio and they get everybody's name wrong, but you throw a Chris Zorich in there and they never miss that one.
You
That
don't miss
Chris Zorich.
But they say Alshon Jeffries and Josh McGowan.
What's even better is Zora was her nickname. Her real name was Zorka. Zorka
Wow.
Zora Zorich.
Wow.
Zorka Zora Zorich.
Try saying that 3 times fast.
Right? God. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
One more thing I wanted to mention. Something happened this weekend at Wrigley Field.
Oh, Rizzo?
Yes. And we've seen a lot of homecomings the past few years, ever since those guys were traded away. That one felt different. That one particularly hit me because of what Rizzo represented, how he served the Chicago and the baseball community, and the fact that he was the rock on which that World Series team was built on. That one hit different, man. And the fact that every time he came to bat, first time in the game, they played intoxicated as he came back, and everybody stood and cheered. It was really something. It really was. And I've talked a lot about it on Twitter. I wrote about it for Cubby's Crib, so check that article out at cubbiescrib.com. But man, the feels were there. And that was kind of that was the final bit of closure. That was the final piece being welcomed back that has since departed. Because Chris Bryant, Javier Baez, we saw that a few weeks ago. We see Wilson Contreras now, he's in division. We saw John Lester. We've seen Kyle Schwarber. We saw Dexter Fowler. All those guys that were part of that 2016 team came back as a visitor for the first time. The one that hadn't until this weekend was the face of that whole thing, and then he finally came back.
Yeah. And he is always going to be the face of that World Series championship, and the you know the I'll always I'll, the act that I'll always remember is him putting that baseball in the back of his pocket. Um, and he was an excellent representative of this team, both as a player and as a person in the community, and just and uh, he's been the one that went on to continue to play baseball pretty well. Um, and I when they let him go, that was the one that sucked the most, but understood because he had so many back problems, and those back problems have continued with the Yankees as well. But he's continued to be productive despite them. Um, and I'll always appreciate Anthony Rizzo.
And when Rizzo was announced being traded away, that's when the sell off, when you knew it was real. Because he was traded away a day before the deadline, a day before they hit the road. Because remember, Chris Bryant and Javier Baez were traded the next day on the trade deadline when they flew out to Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Rizzo was before Baez and Bryant. And that was the signal that they were going completely in another direction.
Yeah, and you look at him, and he's not having a great year.
No, and he's been hurt a lot of it too.
Yeah, and he really hasn't had a particularly good year since 2022. Um,
Well, remember last year too, he was playing with that concussion.
yeah. So, um, yeah, you know, I, it sucked that he left, but he's not the same guy. Um, and it's really got to suck for Jed because Jed was one of the part of the team that drafted him in Boston, then brought him to San Diego, and then brought him back to Chicago.
That's right.
Um, it was huge. There's a huge tie to Jed's career as a baseball front office guy.
Right. But yeah, that was just something worth noting.
Yeah. So is this going to be the when does his Riz's contract expire?
Oh, I'd have to look.
I,
I
I'm,
think
I'm
he plans to finish his
hang.
career with the Yankees.
Oh, I'm sure, but um, this seems like it's the last year. He has a team option next year,
Yep.
so I'm imagining this might be his last year as a professional baseball player, between the injuries and him being
We'll
in his
see.
mid-30s.
He's on borrowed time.
Yes. So the fact that he got to come back, because the Yankees don't come to Wrigley Field very often.
No, no, because next year they'll probably be playing each other in New York.
Yeah. Um, So this might have been the last time he ever played at Wrigley Field.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
I think that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends. That would grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, or ShyFanPat2 for Alex on Twitter/X, or AlexanderJPatCreative.com for all the cool stuff that Alex does. And again, thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.